Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, newly released Epstein emails putting his relationship with the president back in the spotlight. Just released messages written by sex offender Jeffrey Epstein raise new questions about whether President Trump knew about Epstein's crimes.
I'm Mary Bruce at the White House with the president's response to the latest release of letters.
Plus, we're joined by the newest member of the House, Adelita Grijalva, whose swearing in could bring the Epstein files one step closer to being released. With hundreds of thousands of federal workers back on the job, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announces bonuses worth up to $10,000 for TSA agents who worked during the shutdown.
I'm Rachel Scott with a look at how the government plans to pay for those bonuses.
And we asked Congressman Adam Gray, one of the 6 Democrats who voted with Republicans to reopen the government, why he chose to break from his party. This summer's devastating flash flood in Texas took 28 lives at Camp Mystic, the Christian all-girls sleepaway camp located along the river. Families of campers and counselors are now suing the camp and its owners. One of those families, the parents of 8-year-old Abby Lynn Pohl, joins us. For many in Americans' prisons, it's a key to redemption. But what happens when prison officials violate an inmate's religious freedom? In tonight's Prime Focus, the Supreme Court tackles a first-of-its-kind case that involves a Rastafarian man whose sacred dreadlocks were forcibly cut off by Louisiana prison officials. And the scare on the yellow carpet. Ariana Grande charged by a fan at the movie premiere of Wicked for good. Co-star Cynthia Erivo jumps in to protect her.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin with the intense growing pressure on the Justice Department to release all of the Jeffrey Epstein files. For the second day in a row, newly released emails from the Epstein estate are raising more questions about President Trump's ties to Epstein and whether he knew about the convicted sex offender's crimes. The emails mention Trump several times, Epstein even calling him dangerous. The emails also are turning up the pressure on the president as some question why he won't allow the FBI to make the documents public after he promised to do so during his campaign. Mary Bruce leads us off now from the White House.
Tonight, President Trump refusing to answer why he won't let the FBI release the Jeffrey Epstein files, even as just revealed messages written by the sex offender raise new questions about their friendship and whether Trump was aware of Epstein's crimes.
Mr. President, why won't you order the FBI to release the Epstein files?
Epstein's messages, part of a trove of thousands of documents from his estate, now made public by the House Oversight Committee. Trump's name coming up again and again. In a 2017 email to former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, Epstein writing, "I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. Not one decent cell in his body, so yes, dangerous." In a 2018 text to an unidentified person, Epstein writes, "I am the one who can take him down." Trump and Epstein were friends for more than a decade.
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
After Trump launched his presidential campaign in 2015, Epstein told at least one reporter he had dirt to share, suggesting, quote, "Ask my houseman about Donald almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool, and he was so focused he walked straight into the door." Epstein then asking, "Would you like photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen?" Trump, who has denied any wrongdoing, says he broke off the friendship when he learned Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell were luring away women and teenage girls who worked at Mar-a-Lago.
He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again, and I threw him out of the place, persona non grata.
In a 2019 email to author Michael Wolff, Epstein writes, "Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member, ever. Of course, he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop." In an email to Maxwell, Epstein seems to imply Trump had information he never revealed, writing, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump." The White House insists the emails prove the president did nothing wrong. Democrats don't see it that way.
The emails that were released today, again, just raise so many more questions.
Now 218 lawmakers, including 4 Republicans, have signed a petition that will force a full House vote to demand the release of the Epstein files.
We're going to put that on the floor for a full vote next week as soon as we get back.
During the campaign, Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance promised their supporters they would release the full Epstein files. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel did too. But now, a different story. The White House fighting hard to block the full House vote. At the 11th hour, even summoning Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert to the Situation Room, where sources say Bondi and Patel tried to convince her to change her mind on the petition. But she did not.
Mary Bruce joins us now from the White House. Mary, when might the House vote on that measure?
Well, the House is expected to vote on this next week. And Lindsay, we could see something we don't often see. We expect dozens of Republicans to break with the president and demand the release of the full Epstein files, something many Republican voters have wanted to see for a very long time. Lindsay.
Mary Bruce from the White House for us. Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Next tonight, she is the newest member of Congress after being sworn in last night, more than 7 weeks after her special election victory, entering a bitter standoff with GOP Speaker Mike Johnson, who refused to seat her during the government shutdown. Arizona Democrat Representative Adelita Grijalva, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, you stood on the House floor and took the oath of office last night and received applause on both sides of the aisle. Quite a feat. Tell us what that moment was like for you.
It was really surreal. I mean, we've been waiting for 50 days for that to happen. And I had the opportunity to see my dad take the oath and to look up and see my kids and my husband and my mom there. It was just really special. And it sort of felt like at long last, I'd get to actually do my job.
Of course, after you were sworn in, you were that critical 218th signature on that bipartisan House discharge petition to urge the release of the Justice Department's files from its Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Do you think that that 50-day delay in seating you ultimately gave the petition and the files even more attention than it would have received otherwise?
I do. And the timing of the 23,000 emails that were also released right around this time really put an exclamation mark on the need to have this transparency and for all of the files to be out in public.
We were on Capitol Hill a few months ago and heard directly from the Epstein victims. Have you gotten a sense from them yourself about how important this is to, at this moment, to have these files released?
Well, several signed a letter to Speaker Johnson in support of my immediate swearing in. And then I did have the opportunity to invite 2 of the survivors to my swearing in, and also had an opportunity to speak with them today and with other survivors, not just Epstein, but in general. And what I got from them is this tremendous strength and this. They're seeking justice. They want consequences for people who committed crimes against them as children and young women. And when we finally get to that point, it's going to be really powerful.
Last night, we heard Speaker of the House Johnson and President Trump saying some really harsh things about Democrats. What are you most hopeful that you can get accomplished during your time in service?
Really, I think that we have to focus on the issues and stop focusing so much on the partisanship. We have a lot of politicians in office, and we need more public servants that are actually going to do the will of the people that sent them here to work for them. And so when they are voting, and I believe it's my job to explain every single one of my votes and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Of course, everybody doesn't think exactly the same way, but were you hearing one common theme from your constituents as far as whether or not they agreed with the Democrat strategy, or were they hoping that the government reopened?
No, everyone that spoke to me was very happy that Democrats were fighting for them. And I actually had some people that would come up to me directly and say, I'm not a Democrat. I didn't vote for you, but what they're doing to you is not okay. I was like, okay. So there were certain things that did cross. And when I talked to them about what Democrats were fighting for and the fact that the vast majority were getting benefits through the VA or subsidies from ACA, the impact is going to be significant. And pushing this can down the road for us to try to negotiate some sort of compromise in December is unrealistic when Republicans have been critical of the ACA since it was created in 2010, but have had 15 years to come up with a better option and haven't.
Well, we appreciate you coming on the show, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva. We thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Tonight, the federal government is open once again for the first time in 6 weeks. Furloughed workers are back on the job, and today Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem handed out bonus checks to TSA agents who worked during the shutdown without pay. But many employees who called out say the shutdown left them no choice. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, after 43 days of the longest shutdown in U.S. history, the government officially reopened. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers back on the job.
Happy to be back.
A check and say thank you.
Today in Houston, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem handing out $10,000 bonuses to TSA agents, who she says went above and beyond working through the shutdown without pay.
They're going to get a bonus check for stepping up, taking on extra shifts, for showing up each and every day.
It's not clear how many will get a bonus, but Noem says they are evaluating every individual at TSA that did exceptional service during the shutdown. Just days ago, the president said air traffic controllers who took no time off should get a $10,000 bonus too. Air traffic controllers also worked more than a month without pay. Some had to pick up second jobs. But the president threatened to dock those who didn't show up to work, warning on social media they should leave the profession with no payment or severance of any kind. The impact of the shutdown so dire, food banks were popping up at airports.
Thank you.
Some TSA workers, like Maggie Sabantino,
said the fridge is pretty much empty.
A mother of two in Philadelphia, told us she couldn't afford to go to work.
When I call out, I tell them the truth. Can't afford childcare.
Tonight, Maggie is back on the job. But the shockwaves from this shutdown will take days to settle. 1,000 flights canceled today, more than 11,000 in the last week.
Linsey, DHS says they're using leftover funds to pay for those $10,000 bonuses. But when the president was asked how he would pay for the bonuses for air traffic controllers, he said that he did not know. Meanwhile, the impacts of this shutdown still being felt across the country. Millions of Americans who rely on the federal food assistance program, SNAP, will start to see their benefits rolling out. Meanwhile, here at the airport, the FAA still cutting flights by about 6%. Those delays and cancellations expected to last several more days, Linsey.
All right, Rachel Scott for us. Thank you. Joining us now for more is one of those 6 Democrats who voted with Republicans to reopen the government, Congressman Adam Gray, who represents part of California's Central Valley. Thank you so much for your time, Congressman. Your name wasn't on the radar to vote yes. Why the yes vote?
Well, actually, didn't support shutting down the government in the first vote. I abstained from that and was concerned about a government shutdown. And it became pretty clear during this government shutdown, the longest in U.S. history, that the president and the Republican majority were, really comfortable putting the most vulnerable Americans at risk with the SNAP program and some of these other important funding programs. So it just felt immoral, frankly, to continue with it. And the fact that the Senate was able to negotiate a deal that took those people out of the middle, that actually funded those programs for a year, and gave us an opportunity over the next 60 days to try hammer out a solution to this healthcare crisis. And obviously, in Washington, where government shutdowns seem to happen over and over and over again, there's always another opportunity at the end of January. But for the time being, I think we've done some good things for federal employees, for people on food assistance and veterans and others.
Give us the behind the scenes. Is there a roll call? Do you call up Hakeem Jeffries and say, hey, I'm actually going to vote yes on this? How does that all work?
Well, there's certainly always a lot of conversation between the members as people are evaluating what they think's right for their district and their communities. And, I spoke with the leadership and, let them know what I had arrived at and what kind of vote I was going to cast. But people arrive at different conclusions. For me, I thought this bipartisan agreement made some progress, not enough progress. But I've spent most of my career, both in the state legislature and now my first year in Congress, trying to foster bipartisanship. And I think, we got a bipartisan solution out of this shutdown. Let's get a bipartisan solution on healthcare in the next 60 days. And, we made progress this morning. We got an actual letter signed by Republicans and Democrats in the House to the Senate saying we need to get something done by the end of the year. So I think we're already making progress. And most importantly, we've protected the American people from being treated as pawns in this kind of political game.
I'm curious, had you heard from constituents on both sides and ultimately decided that you were better served voting yes, as more of your constituents felt that way?
Yeah, I'd heard from a lot of people that were concerned about what's happening in our food banks, veterans concerned, small business owners concerned about not being able to access resources at the SBA. But most importantly, it was just the fact that the president wouldn't even follow a court order to use emergency funds to feed families just struck me as immoral. And frankly, somebody had to be an adult in the room and say enough of that. Let's protect these folks. Let's keep the argument going on healthcare. And I intend to do that. In no way am I standing down on, I actually introduced the bill this summer to repeal the Medicaid cuts, to permanently extend the tax credits. I hope we can find some kind of an agreement that Republicans can sign on to and actually make sure we're protecting people's healthcare.
Republicans have suggested that those who voted no weren't being adults in the room. Would you agree with that?
No, I think people arrive at their own conclusions. And I think what's happening with healthcare in this country is deeply disturbing. What happened during this shutdown across the board was deeply disturbing. So I don't begrudge any of my Democrat colleagues who arrived at the conclusion that, these folks aren't dealing in good faith and I just can't support this. I'm doing my best to create space for bipartisanship. I think the only lasting policy solutions in this country in history have been bipartisan. And most importantly, I think we have an obligation at the end of the day not to win an argument, but actually to fix problems for the American people. That's what we're elected to do.
Congressman Adam Gray, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining the show.
Thanks so much. Nice to see you.
Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman has been hospitalized after he took a fall early this morning while walking near his home. According to a statement from his team, Fetterman suffered ventricular fibrillation and abnormal heart rhythm. It led to him feeling lightheaded and ultimately collapsing. The senator previously had a stroke in 2022. Reverend Jesse Jackson is in the hospital and under observation for progressive supranuclear palsy, a rare degenerative neurological disorder. The civil rights leader and former Democratic presidential candidate was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2015 and PSP in April of this year. Jackson has been receiving 24-hour care in recent months. In a statement, his family asked for continued prayer during this time. A toxic scare in Weatherford, Oklahoma, about 70 miles outside Oklahoma City, sent dozens of people to the hospital overnight. Authorities say a tanker truck began leaking ammonia in a hotel parking lot, forcing multiple hotels and a senior center to evacuate as residents were told to shelter in place. Emergency officials are now monitoring air quality and possible environmental dangers. ABC's Trevor Ault reports.
Tonight, west of Oklahoma City, at least 11 people in critical condition, dozens more sickened after a tanker truck leaked poisonous gas in a hotel parking lot.
We just have a huge cloud of gas coming out the west side of the Holiday Inn is all we can see.
Officials say that white cloud engulfing the cars is anhydrous ammonia gas spreading through the parking lot behind the Holiday Inn Express late Wednesday night in Weatherford, Oklahoma.
We went back to run out to go, and I see like an old lady coughing, and everybody's coughing around us. And I see the fireman coughing and on his knees, and we couldn't breathe. We couldn't breathe. Like I thought I'm dying. I thought I'm going to quit running and just collapse on the floor.
At least 36 people rushed to the hospital.
There were some serious injuries, and those were meta-flighted to Oklahoma City, and those were the life-threatening.
Joan Escobar says he was treated at the scene.
My throat was getting really swollen up. I held so much of that gas,
Yeah.
It was crazy, man.
Yeah.
Never experienced nothing like that. Yeah. Don't want to experience it again.
Police going door to door, evacuating nearly 1,000 residents, hotel guests, and at least 2 nursing homes in the area, sending them to a nearby college sports arena. Another 600 people ordered to shelter in place.
Some scary moments there. Trevor Ault joins us now. Trevor, is it now safe to return to the area?
Oh, yeah, Lindsay, the shelter-in-place order has been lifted, but the ammonia cleanup is going to take several days here, not to mention the fact that we've now learned more than 70 people in total received treatment, and several of them tonight are still in life-threatening condition. Lindsay?
Trevor Altforest, thanks so much, Trevor. And breaking late today, a beloved football coach and athletic director was shot right near the football field at Laney College in Oakland, California. The images of the students sheltering in place. News tonight on that coach and his condition. Here's ABC's Matt Gutman.
Tonight, an urgent manhunt for a man believed to have opened fire on a college campus in Oakland, California. Sources telling our ABC station KGO, beloved Laney College athletic director and football coach John Beam was shot and wounded. It happened near the school's football field this afternoon, putting the campus on lockdown. This video on the Citizen app showing these students taking shelter in a lecture hall.
We're currently asking the public's help in locating a suspect, a potential suspect in this case. It's a male unknown race, wearing all dark clothing and a black hoodie that fled the scene.
Beam, a football legend in the Bay Area for more than 40 years.
Laney College Eagles are the 2018 state champions.
Laney football's success under Coach Beam is hard to ignore. The team featured on the Netflix series Last Chance U.
I get paid to do what I love. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I'm just so lucky.
Our thanks to Matt Gutman. Now to that Major League Baseball scandal. The All-Star pitcher arrested and arraigned here in New York, accused of pitching into the dirt on purpose to help gamblers with their bets. Our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, has this story.
Mr. Clase, anything to say? Tonight, one of the best relievers in baseball, Emmanuel Clase, walking out of court, released on a $600,000 bond after pleading not guilty to charges he conspired with sports bettors to throw pitches into the dirt on purpose. Authorities accuse Clase and his Cleveland Guardians teammate Luis Ortiz of accepting bribes and kickbacks to help gamblers win big bets on rigged pitches like this one.
Throw it over the plate and the first one bounces in the grass.
Ortiz also pleaded not guilty and was released on a $500,000 bond. The judge today barring Clase from gambling and ordering his whereabouts monitored, noting Clase has ample means to flee after signing a 5-year, $20 million contract. Clase allegedly texting during games to coordinate with gamblers. In one instance, authorities say bettors won $15,000 during an April game against the Royals by placing multiple bets that a pitch thrown by Clase would be a ball and would be slower than 98 miles per hour. The pitch ended up in the grass, well short of the plate. Clase and Ortiz may face decades in prison and bans from the game if convicted, Lindsay, and Major League Baseball has already capped bets on balls and strikes at $200, hoping to address what the commissioner calls integrity concerns raised by the case. Lindsay?
Aaron, thank you. And we do have some sad news about one of our former ABC News colleagues, Jim Avila, who was a senior national correspondent. He's passed away after a long illness. His investigative journalism spanned 2 decades, covering politics, law, and consumer reports. Avila was the first to break the news that the U.S. and Cuba reopened diplomatic relations during the Obama administration, earning him the prestigious Merriman Award from the White House Correspondents Association. Avila was 70 years old. Coming up, frightening moments for Ariana Grande, caught on camera as a fan jumped a barricade and rushed toward her, the co-star who jumped in to protect her. Plus, a prisoner's religious freedoms were violated when his dreadlocks were shaved against his will. Does that put America's prisons and its workers at fault? And can they be held accountable? The case that's now before the Supreme Court.
These are all laws that were passed to protect religious liberty, and I would say to especially protect the liberties of religious minorities.
And the unthinkable grief of a mother and father fueling a mission to prevent another tragedy. The parents of one of the girls lost in the Texas floods while she was away at camp. They talk about their decision to file a lawsuit. Welcome back, everyone. This past July, at least 138 people died during a devastating flash flood in Texas. 28 of those lives were taken at Camp Mystic, the Christian all-girls sleepaway camp located along the Guadalupe River, which rapidly rose overnight while campers were asleep. 8-year-old Abby Lynn Pohl was among those who died that night. Her mother and father, Kristen and Matthew Pohl, are among the multiple families of campers and 2 counselors who are now suing the camp and its owners, alleging gross negligence and reckless disregard for safety. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. I know you're also joined with your attorney, Kyle Finley. We were in Hill Country in the days after the flood and saw the devastation with our own eyes. Our condolences to you both. I know that you just filed this lawsuit today, and it's now one of 5 lawsuits made by other families and counselors, all alleging that camp officials focused on profits over safety. Did the camp provide any information prior to the tragedy about a potential weather risk?
Not at all.
And Kristen and Matthew, after the flood, development of summer camps in that area came under scrutiny, as you know, as that area was known as Flash Flood Alley. What was your reaction to learning this information while at the same time grieving the loss of your daughter?
It was unbelievable. We had no idea that we were sending our children, our 3 daughters, to a camp that was known as Flash Flood Alley. That was never brought to our attention.
We didn't have the pleasure of knowing your daughter, Abby, but you've described her as a young girl who had a joyful spirit and someone who enjoyed morning snuggles with her mom. What else do you want people to know about your daughter?
She was everything we ever wanted in a child. She was perfect in every way and had a special bond with her 2 older sisters, and also her, all of us were just a tight-knit family, and she had a happy spirit. She loved to make people laugh, and without her here, there's just a deep hole in our hearts.
Abby was placed in the Bubble Inn at Camp Mystic, where tragically all the girls and their counselors passed away. What have these past few months been like for you and your family and other families who lost their daughters?
Devastating. It's hard to believe.
We are just suffering every day. Feels like the pain just will never end. To outlive a child is not something I would wish upon my worst enemy. And the worst part is just knowing that it could have been prevented.
I know that this was a Christian camp. Just curious, how do you reconcile the loss of a child with your Christian faith?
We're being tested.
I don't think that we would be here if it weren't for our faith.
Kyle, I want to bring you in here. Jeff Ray, who's legal counsel for Camp Mystic, said, we disagree with several accusations and misinformation in the legal filings regarding the actions of Camp Mystic and Dick Eastland, who lost his life as well. We will thoroughly respond to these accusations in due course. What's your response to this statement?
Our response to this statement is simple. The facts are laid out clearly in this petition. This was an event that totally could have been prevented. You had the Texas Department of Emergency Management Services issuing warnings and getting into action on July 2nd. On July 3rd, you have a flood watch warning that comes out. No action taken whatsoever. And then even on July 4th, when the flood warning comes out at 1 o'clock in the morning, still no actions taken. It's not till the wee hours of the morning, even based on the legal representation of Mystic, that for the first time a plan starts to happen when it's already too late. And that's the problem with this case, and the devastation that it caused is this was entirely preventable. There were steps that should have been taken that were never taken. There was no sort of plan put in place, despite the fact that it was known that this flood was coming. And that's the hardest part about this, is you've got instances, the Pohls and others, who had other children there. And to have sisters walk by their little sister's cabin, and with the youngest girls not being evacuated, and wondering to this day why they didn't go in and get their sister, why they weren't allowed to get their sister, and maybe this could have been prevented. And without a doubt, this is something that should never happen. And that's what this lawsuit is for, is to prevent this from ever happening again.
Kristen and Matthew, what do you hope comes from your lawsuit ultimately?
Transparency, accountability, and prevention so that this never happens again.
How are your other daughters coping with Abby's loss?
It's a real struggle. They're not but 20 months apart, all three of them. We're very close. It's incredibly difficult. It's very day to day. We try to make the best of it.
Kristen and Matthew, we thank you so much for sharing memories of Abby and talking to us tonight. Again, we are so immensely sorry for your loss. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And still ahead, what happens if someone in prison says they are not being allowed to practice their religion? Devin Dwyer has this in-depth report. The landmark wildlife sighting this animal had not been seen in nearly 200 years in a national park. We'll tell you why officials are so excited. Welcome back, everyone. Practicing faith behind bars. For many in America's prisons, it's a key to redemption. But what happens when prison officials violate an inmate's religious freedom? Can they be sued for damages, or are they immune? The Supreme Court this week tackled questions of accountability in a first-of-its-kind case that involves a Rastafarian man whose dreadlocks, the religion considers sacred, were cut forcibly off by Louisiana prison officials. Our Devin Dwyer has more now on what's at stake.
The music of Bob Marley put reggae on the map. But for so many artists and fans, the rhythms and deep bass vibes are also an expression of a modern faith.
It's about faith, it's about love, it's about peace.
Zaya Ayubu is a practicing Rastafarian, a religion born in 1930s Jamaica that recognizes an Ethiopian Messiah and teachings of justice, righteousness, and natural living. His band Proverbs promotes an ancient wisdom, Zaya says, spreading the message of the Rastafari God known as Jah. Dreadlocks are the most physical manifestation of a devout Rastafarian's faith.
It's like a sacred covenant, that the Rasta man made with the Almighty.
So dreadlocks are more than just a fashion style.
Exactly.
Zaya's hair has been growing since 1981.
I see them as my spiritual antennas. If I was to lose them, I feel like I'm going to lose some kind of connection.
The religious meaning and value of Rastafarian dreadlocks are now at the center of a major case before the U.S. Supreme Court. It involves Damon Landor of Louisiana, a self-described devout Rastafarian who let his hair grow for almost 20 years as part of a promise in his faith known as the Nazarite vow. In 2023, when he arrived at the Laborde Correctional Center to serve out the final 3 weeks of a 5-month sentence for a drug offense, Warden Marcus Myers allegedly ignored Landor's plea to keep his dreadlocks, allowing guards to handcuff him to a chair and shave him bald. He tried to sue over a violation of his religious rights, but a federal court tossed out his case.
He said that he felt that he had been raped, not in the sexual sense, right? But in the physical sense, that he had been violated in a way that really disrupted his sense of self.
Federal law requires states to accommodate sincere religious practice in prison, like a Rastafarian's dreadlocks, unless it can prove a compelling state interest. But there's no legal consensus on whether a prisoner whose rights were allegedly violated can sue officials for damages in federal court. Louisiana argues state officials have immunity no matter what.
We support the principles behind protections of religious freedom and the laws that have been enacted both by Congress and our states to protect people's religious liberty and their religious freedoms. In a prison setting, this becomes a lot more complicated. It could crush the entire state budget if we were subjected to damages in a situation like this.
Landor and his attorney, who both declined to speak with ABC, say in court documents that having no remedy and no accountability for the forcible cutting of his dreadlocks is clearly wrong, and that Congress enacted exemptions from immunity for cases just like this.
These are all laws that were passed to protect religious liberty, and I would say to especially protect the liberties of religious minorities.
For Rastafarians, the Supreme Court's review of Landor's case highlights a long history of discrimination and an alleged lack of accountability, especially behind bars.
I just wish that nobody has to go through what I went through.
Solomon Tafari spent a decade in solitary confinement in a Virginia prison because he refused to cut his hair.
Being in the isolation, you get out like maybe 2 or 3 times a week. They place you in a dog cage and call that recreation, hearing the screams.
The prison grooming policy offered no exceptions for Rastafarians. After his release, Solomon tried to sue but got nowhere.
There were times where I was in deep depression, thought about committing suicide. That aspect was there as well. But it's my faith that kept me going, saying, and y'all forgive me because I'm getting emotional, that things going to work out. That's going to be all right. And to this day, I don't know how to make it. People look at me as success, but they don't know what they've been through. And I'm just thankful that God brought me here.
In 2018, Thomas Walker, a Rastafarian in an Illinois state prison, was forced to cut his dreadlocks for what officials claimed were security reasons. And the same thing happened to Carlos Thurman in Kentucky in 2022, despite his plea for a Rastafarian exemption. The state later changed its policy and settled the case.
Justice is making you whole to some extent in the form of compensatory damages, in the form of money. Money also serves as a deterrent.
Nearly 600 grievances related to multiple forms of religious practice were filed in selected federal prisons over a 7-year period. But only one of those resulted in a favorable outcome for the prisoner, what advocates say is further evidence of limited respect for religious freedom behind bars.
I think there is just a general dehumanization of people who are incarcerated.
Zaya and the Proverbs are praying the Supreme Court case will help change the way Rastafarians and their sacred hair are viewed by society.
Growing up in the 70s and 80s, if they put you in jail, you could guarantee that they're going to cut your locks off. This is 2025. I thought all of that was over and done.
A community of believers raising their voices and hoping the justices will deliver.
We're still here, still working, still loving each other and, living together.
A unique confluence of church and state there. Our thanks to David Muir for that. Coming up, he wowed audiences in The Americans with his portrayal of a Cold War Russian spy, and most recently as the classic TV attorney Perry Mason. Actor Matthew Rhys is here on how he's now switching it up with his new Netflix series. And why a North Carolina woman and TikTok influencer blamed for breaking up her lover's marriage must now pay big bucks to the jilted ex-wife. Scary moments between a charging fan and superstar Ariana Grande caught on camera. An influencer is ordered to pay nearly $2 million after being found liable for destroying a marriage. And it's a mission to Mars. Watch Blue Origin launch its latest expedition. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. Starbucks baristas are set to walk off the job in dozens of U.S. cities on Thursday, aiming to galvanize public support and pressure the company on Red Cup Day, the coffee giant's annual holiday promotion. More than 1,000 Starbucks workers will go on strike at about 65 stores as union members say Starbucks has failed to make new proposals on key issues like staffing levels and pay since the labor group rejected an offer from the company in April. The workers also seek to resolve hundreds of allegations over illegal labor practices, including claims of retaliation targeting union members. A scary moment in Singapore as a fan attending the premiere of the new Wicked movie jumped over a security barricade and rushed towards star Ariana Grande, putting his arm around her as she tried to move away from him. Security quickly grabbed the man and escorted him off the carpet as Grande tried to make sense of what happened with her co-star Cynthia Erivo. The man was later identified and has been known to crash other celebrity events in the past. A North Carolina woman whose marriage ended after her husband had an affair with a popular TikTok star was awarded nearly $2 million in court. A jury found her former husband to have been in violation of North Carolina's alienation of affection and criminal conversation laws and ordered the influencer to pay her lover's former wife after being liable. In North Carolina, the alienation of affection law states that if a marriage ends in divorce because of infidelity, the husband or wife in certain situations can sue the person with whom the spouse had the affair. Tesla has recalled thousands of its at-home battery power systems called Powerwall due to fire and burn hazards. To date, the company has received 22 reports of overheating, including 6 reports of smoking and 5 reports of fire resulting in minor property damage. A very rare leopard sighting in a South African national park is giving hope to researchers that the animal is recolonizing the region. The elusive predator was thought to be extinct in the coastal Cape Town area since the mid-1800s, but was captured on remote camera trap 3 different times. Conservationists in the area have been partnering with local institutions, private landowners, and other organizations for decades in order to create safe corridors for the country's leopard populations as they move through different habitats. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket launched from Florida today, carrying 2 spacecrafts that are destined for Mars. NASA contracted the company to bring the twin spacecrafts for the Escapade mission into orbit around Earth. The Mars-bound spacecrafts will orbit around Earth for about a year until late next fall, when they'll use Earth's gravity to slingshot them on a trajectory to Mars. Back here on Earth, the massive 321-foot-tall Blue Origin rocket landed on a barge, making Blue Origin the second company to achieve this feat with an orbital-class rocket. You have seen him on The Americans, winning an Emmy and a Critics' Choice Award for his performance as a Russian spy. And now you see him in a new sinister new role on Netflix. Our Ashan Singh talked to actor Matthew Rhys about his latest project.
From playing a KGB agent in The Americans to taking on the classic role of Perry Mason, Matthew Rhys has played a range of characters. But in his latest project, he's now become the mystery.
Why are you here?
In the new Netflix series The Beast in Me, Matthew Rhys plays Now Jarvis, a real estate titan suspected of murdering his missing wife. But when he moves back to his cozy hometown, he draws the suspicion of a grieving acclaimed author, played by Claire Danes, who unleashes a game of cat and mouse. Let's take a look.
Yeah, well, I think it's a story that could offer hope.
No one wants hope, you know that. People want gossip and carnage. You want another bestseller, you should write about me. Okay. Why is that funny? I'm interesting. And I got stories, believe me. People think they know, they don't.
Joining me now is Emmy Award-winning actor Matthew Rhys. Matthew, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invite. Nice to be here.
Congratulations on the show, by the way. It's
Thank you.
a far departure from the roles that we've seen you play in the past, right?
Yeah.
This is a menacing character. What actually drew you to the role of Now Jarvis?
Exactly that. You know, it's very rare that I get to play these kind of slightly more, well, the darker, you know, more menacing characters. So I leapt at the opportunity when it came my way, because it's not something I usually gets thrown my way.
Mm-hmm. Without giving too much away, you see the character of Now Jarvis emerge pretty quickly in the show between his ego, his influence, sort of that menacing, chilling nature. This is no Philip Jennings. This is no Perry Mason. What'd you have to tap into to play Now?
Oh, this is very close to home for me. There's very little I had to do. This is my comfort zone.
That rage?
Menace, rage, and sinister. Yeah, that's my wheelhouse and where I like to live. In fairness, the writing was so incredibly strong in this that, you know, the challenge I set myself was not to get in the way of it, and certainly not to put any unneeded mustard on top of it, as they say. The premise was set up in such a way whereby, way before you meet Niall, so many people have discussed him saying how disturbing or menacing or sinister he is, there's nothing you have to do when you turn up because all the hard work's been done for you.
Thanks for lunch, Mr. Jarvis.
Niall, please, come on. We're friends now, right? Got lucky we got with the weather. Claire's character, Aggie, is forever leaning in, going, what is really going on with this guy? So the canvas tends to be quite neutral, so that it is unreadable. To me, that was the way he was set up, and we only really start seeing his true colors towards the end. The challenge was not to do too much or to give too much away too early.
Considering how high my editor is on this project, she might tell me to write it anyway. The unauthorized version. Talk to everyone but you.
You're pretty ballsy for someone negotiating 100 stories up in the air.
Working with Claire Danes, you guys are going toe-to-toe in this show, and it's got a little bit of nuance to your relationship. One minute you guys are enemies, the next minute you are the subject of her book. How did you guys navigate the nuance in this relationship and building this chemistry on screen? It's uncomfortable, but you're kind of going from either opposite end of the spectrum.
That was the beauty of their relationship, which is at the kind of the center of it all. Like you said, this cat and mouse between the two of them. They're constantly leaning in and being kind of repulsed by each other.
Two people with radically opposed worldviews, deeply polarized convictions, who still manage to have real affection for...
It's a snooze. The scene was actually 10 pages long. It's almost a 10-minute scene. And we shot that. It was my second day of filming, which at first I thought was hideous that they would schedule it that way, that I would have to come in and kind of hit this enormous scene almost cold. But what it actually did was set up beautifully and give the relationship an enormous foundation going forward as to how they react towards each other. Because within those 10 pages, they kind of go through everything. They insult each other, they make each other laugh, they discover in each other this very strange relationship that they wouldn't have thought would have kind of blossomed or bloomed 10 minutes prior to that meeting. So that informed the rest of the series incredibly well.
Matthew, before I let you go, you're heading back to London this weekend. First time on stage in 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're going to be playing the iconic Richard Burton, the Welsh actor who earlier this week, it would have been his 100th birthday.
It was, yes, he would have turned 100. And so there are an inordinate amount of celebrations throughout Wales celebrating his continued legacy. And I'm doing a one-man show about him that's kind of part of the celebrations for the Welsh National Theatre.
Yeah, what's it like getting back to the stage? How are you feeling?
Terrified. First performance is at the Old Vic Theatre in London on Sunday, which was a theatre incredibly associated with Burton. He did his famous Hamlet there. So the thought of going back onto those boards after being away for so long is terrifying.
I'm sure it's going to be like riding a bike for you.
We'll see.
Matthew Rhys, thank you so much for joining us. All 8 episodes of Netflix's limited series, The Beast in Me, is out now on Netflix.
Our thanks to Ashin for that. Tonight, a major achievement for superstar Shohei Ohtani. The Dodgers pitcher and designated hitter just won his 4th MVP award in 5 years, this year winning it unanimously. This is his 3rd straight year winning MVP. He is just the 2nd player in MLB history to win 4 MVP awards. Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge won the MVP award in the American League, edging out catcher Cal Raleigh in a highly debated MVP bout. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of today's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.